Welcome back from lunch, everybody. I hope that you're all re-energized and that you've been able to reconnect, exchange ideas, and build the relationships that make real collaboration possible, something that feels quite relevant for this particular session. The global energy transition is unfolding under very different conditions. Emerging economies are striving to expand access to affordable and reliable energy while avoiding excessive buildup of fossil fuel dependence. For advanced economies, the focus is on cutting emissions and decoupling economic growth from fossil energy use. And in both cases, markets and the global trading system are at the core. Today, companies face increasing exposure to volatile oil markets, geopolitical tensions, and vulnerable supply chains. Diversification, risk management, and resilience have become essential as the world navigates constrained resources and rising competition for critical materials. These pressures make the pursuit of a fair and sustainable transition even more challenging and urgent. Now, over the next 90 minutes, we're going to explore how international finance, trade policy, and investment partnerships can support equitable progress in turbulent times. And you may, of course, participate through Slido. And yes, I know there are many questions that we still haven't had the chance to convey to the panels, but rest assured, I'm seeing them, and I'm going to ask a lot of them as soon as we get the chance. So the QR code is available for the physical audience on your name tags, and the code is ETC26. Just remember to click like for the things you find relevant. Now, let's take a look at the state of the energy transition today. Where do we stand, and where are we heading? Someone who can offer clear answers to that is Sverre Alvik, Vice President at DNV, which is a Norwegian-based international provider of independent assurance and risk management. Every year, DNV publishes its Energy Transition Outlook, and Sverre, he is the director behind this work. He is here now to share some key insights from their latest report and to give us a clear snapshot of the global transition as it looks right now. So please welcome Sverre Alvik.
Thank you, Ruth Astrid, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have heard a lot today about what must happen, and that's important. But in DNV and in the forecasting perspective, we are looking first and foremost what is happening already. And the elephant in the room today, and I have to start with that, is what's happening in Iran. And what do we see? And what's the impact of what we see? The oil and gas prices, they go through the roof. But long-term demand destruction has not yet happened. And although we see some short-term, for example, on aviation. The GCC countries' image as a safe place is gone. Who would buy an apartment in Dubai today? I think they're for sale. And still, these countries will remain having the cheapest oil and gas in the world and in the coming decades. And this has further increased the focus on resilience and energy independence, and that means long-term fueling domestically controlled resources like nuclear, renewable, and also coal in many countries. But let's look at the global transition beyond the Iran thing and with a more long-term perspective. If there's one line I would suggest you try to remember from my short speech today, is that technology is easier to export than policy. It's as simple as that, and that's the reason why what's happening in China is much more important for the global transition than what's happening in US. Technologies are easier to export than policies. And most countries are embracing competitive Chinese technologies, not without dilemmas, because there's a lot of dilemmas on job security and similar, but still, these are available, and they're low in price, and they fuel the transition. And it's very tempting or easy trap for us to look at the transition with European and Norwegian lens, and it seems like it's stalling. It's not, because of competitive Chinese technologies. Geopolitics is everywhere. We have an arms race. We have growing tensions. We are challenging the Western-dominated world order that we've had now for a century. We have, since the end of the Cold War, had a global cooperation on technologies and trust in established institutions. That is now at risk. WTO and similar are not more having the same standing. We see, as I said, an increased willingness to pay for domestically controlled and domestically produced energy. And that means mostly renewables, but it also helps nuclear and coal in China and in India. And then we see reshoring of manufacturing. It's possible to open new mines. We will hear more about critical minerals today, but it takes a decade or more. And it does come at additional cost, because why do we trade and buy things from China? Because they're cheaper than from elsewhere. If we want to build the same thing, it will cost more. We heard earlier today that energy security is challenging the energy sustainability. We heard that from Equinor. I disagree. Energy security is challenging affordability. But on a global scale, it's going mostly in tandem with energy security. If we have a large model on energy, the energy transition in DNV, and if we try to nullify everything that has to do with energy security in that model, you see the result here. Then we find an energy transition that goes faster in the countries that are energy importers and slower in countries that are energy exporters. Or if we paraphrase the DG Energy colleague we heard, the drug addicts, that's the energy importing countries, and the drug dealers, that's the energy exporting countries, including Norway, of course.
The biggest and best of all?
Yes. The sum is not a big number here. As you see, it's 1%. But in average, globally, energy security is fueling the transition. It's not halting it. The biggest and most important trend on the energy transition is the growing and greening of electricity worldwide. Electricity is a wonderful type of energy of two main reasons. One, it's very effective, and two, it can fairly easily be green. Today, most of the world's electricity is still fossil fuel, but already know solar and wind is the cheapest form of new electricity most places in the world. And by 2060, they will represent 80% of the global electricity mix, not without caveats, because it's variable, and the variability means it's much more expensive grid that needs both demand response and storage and connectivity to function. But the greening and growing of electricity is the most important trend for the transition globally. Still, 80% of the energy we use globally is fossil fuels. And up to now, we have had an energy addition, not an energy transition on a global scale. But from now onwards, fossil fuel is about to peak within the next 5 years. And fossil fuel is being replaced on an absolute basis by renewables and partly nuclear. And mid-century, we'll see a 50-50 split. In 2060, it will be a 37-63 split, according to our best estimate. Is that enough? No. Because, as we know, CO2 emissions is more or less directly correlated with combustion of fossil fuels. And with the present and expected pace, with the expected political, economical, and technological development, we are emptying the 1.5-degree carbon budget this decade. We're emptying the 2-degree carbon budget around mid-century. And then in the very end of this century, around 2090, we will see net zero. Net zero is the magic number here, because that's when global temperature rise will stop. And this is happening first in in power, then in transport, and slower in other sectors. So we're on the right track, but with the wrong pace, heading towards 2.2 degrees of global warming is our best estimate. Thank you.